during the lunch for this kind of ongoing conversation. And we have a lot of our ecosystem partners here in the room. Aaron McPherson over at Verizon, we're doing a big project coming up in March. Patrice and us have worked together in Bermuda with the Bermuda International Film Festival. Me and Chris are always talking about doing something cool and then scatter off to our different parts of the world. But these guys that are up here right now are all working with us on in-progress strategic projects. And Supercool is a great example, and also Verizon, of incoming strategic and ecosystem projects. And I really wanted to do this lunch to pull all of you guys together to just get a sense of how it's all playing out, not only for the fund, but for the ecosystem, and then not only for the ecosystem, but hopefully for yourselves to be inspired by these things. So I'm going to tell you quickly about how we met Supercool, and it's from our wonderful friend Ann Rosenberg, who many of you guys might know. She's like one of these meta connectors. She just knows everybody in every place, and we had been friends in the Hub community and seen each other at Climate Week and at Davos and many things, but we had never quite figured out how to work together. And in Cannes at the Hub last June, we said, okay, we're going to make something happen. And so we just pulled together the Finnish Flow people who are up the mountain, and Anne and Tom, and they brought Arunjan, who's a really great meditation person, and they came to the Hub one morning, and it was just us. And we did a yoga session as a podcast. And so if you go to the Hub Culture Chronicles, you'll be able to find that. By the way, we are live streaming, and we are recording this as an episode for the Chronicles. So welcome to the Hub Culture Chronicles. We are live in Davos at the Ice House 2023, joining the Venn Digital Asset Fund Lunch, an exploration of the ecosystem around Hub Culture, presented with Supercool Mobility Centers, who are going to be talking to us later. We'll also have Dan Zimmerman, who is with IOTA, but also the special advisor to Venn, with Chance Barnett, who's the founder and chairman of Jewel Bank, a Bermuda-based full-service bank, and with Christian Hasker, who is with Hedera and the HBAR Foundation, working with us on a lot of initiatives in the climate and carbon world. So, welcome to the episode. We're going to dive into a live conversation with all of our ecosystem friends here on this snowy mountaintop in Davos. As we get started, I was telling this little story about our friend Ann Rosenberg and how we connected with Supercool. So Ann had visited many hubs, and we had visited many of her projects around the world, but as I said, we had never quite fully connected. So we arranged this meeting at the Hub in Cannes, and we did a podcast episode with Arun John, and a yoga session, and some breath work. And we synchronized our breath at the end of this meeting. And I can't tell you what an incredible result that played in our working relationship. And so one of the things that I would like to do after lunch, before we leave, is a synchronizing breath so that we in this room will be synchronized and aligned for the year ahead. But I can tell you that that synchronizing breath that we did has paid great dividends. Anne has been a great ally and friend of Hub, and she brought us a lot of new friends and partners in Egypt, including Supercool. And Supercool, we hung out, we had fun, and then they now are here with us in Davos. They're doing some amazing work, which we're going to hear about in a little bit, ranging from Formula E all the way through to the future of electric mobility, especially in North America. So that's a little bit about the ecosystem. Thank you all for coming. We're going to dive into a conversation, and we're going to keep you guys involved. Before we start, I want to recognize Aaron McPherson at Verizon. We're really happy to say publicly for the first time, not publicly, that we're working on a secret project. Yeah, we're happy to tell you publicly that we're working on a secret project. So, okay, we're going to get started. I'm going to begin with Dan. Dan and I met at Miami Crypto Week. Do you have a question? Oh, Anthony's here. Oh, you made it. Great. Okay, we have another person, Anthony Bertrand-Martin from Polygon, and they're our partner at the Tech Lodge. Glad you made it. Come on up. Oh, no, Anthony, you're here. Yeah, I'm standing. You guys are talking. I'm going to be handing this mic over to you guys to roll the show. So if any of you haven't been up to the Polygon Tech Lodge, you've got to come and see it. It's our second year working with them, and another example of an incredible partnership, which actually came through Dan. So we were with Dan at ETH Denver, and he introduced us to some of the influencers within the Polygon ecosystem. We were all hanging out and talking about Davos. They introduced us to Anthony, and it resulted in this incredible year two of a partnership. And this is really about more than the fund, because we have about 40 investments in the fund now across crypto, equity, and other sorts of projects. But these guys all represent different aspects of that. And so we're going to get into that a little bit. I'm not going to start with you, Anthony. I'm going to start with Dan, and we're going to loop back around to you. So Dan, you have been appointed a special advisor to Venn. Can you tell us what that means? And also, I want you to drop in the amphipohedron.
It's a secret. You have to stop giving away secrets. Hi, nice to meet you all. I've been in the crypto space for a couple years, and part of a portfolio company within Venn, which is called Mintify. And it's around kind of the professionalization of these new NFT economies. And I think we heard so much about NFTs that we thought it was just about monkey pictures or kind of these like ephemeral things, but they're actually becoming the bedrock of like real economies. And you can think of these as sub-economies, like gaming as a sub-economy, music as a sub-economy, real-world assets as a sub-economy. Spoke with some of the largest funds in the last couple weeks, and they're all talking about the tokenization of real-world assets. There's kind of a wild phenomena that happens when music is liquidity on a network or gaming is liquidity on a network. There's this interoperability factor where it starts to connect with a lot of this kind of decentralized finance infrastructure. And the next thing you know, you have these weird structured products around gaming, around music that really didn't exist before. So Mintify is this like pro NFT trading platform to really like expose people to these new assets. And as part of the work I'm doing with Venn, kind of exposing Venn to this new kind of world, being at the forefront of these NFT economies, and then also exploring some of these interesting use cases around like carbon credits, like what happens once carbon credits come on chain, they become liquidity. So how do you think of these registries as liquidity, and how do you start building out like shared common frameworks around them?
So it's been a pretty dark crypto winter the last few months with a few terrible implosions. So I'd like to have you, because I really do think of you as one of the people who is helping me get the reputation for seeing things ahead of time, because I'm often getting some of my best information from you. And we invested in Mintify earlier this year. It was so oversubscribed that they would only give us the tiniest fraction of a sliver, but it was like in between budgets, so we didn't have that much money anyway. But I'm curious, like, where do you see this going? Because the reason we went into Mintify is it felt to me a lot like getting into a traditional CeFi exchange around 2014 or 2015. So can you tell me, like, what else do you see emerging on the kind of far horizon that if you see something come across your desk right now, you'd be like, I gotta jump on that?
Yeah, so one of the things I try to bring to my portfolio companies or to partners that I work with is this idea of ecosystem thinking. And I think oftentimes it's kind of becoming a buzzword now, but once you have shared infrastructure, right? So like AI is kind of its own shared infrastructure, blockchain is its own shared infrastructure, and once applications have a shared common language, it's easier to interoperate and it's easier to communicate. So the idea with Mintify is that it's not just necessarily a platform for trading NFTs. The question is, in ecosystem thinking, is how do you build components that allow other people to come on and build? So it's really about building a network of partners that are aligned with you and fit many different functions. They can be on the capital side, they could be on the development side, they could be on the user acquisition side, they could be on the big infrastructure side. So I think really the insight here is whatever project you're doing, if you're using the shared infrastructure, the question isn't how do I build a product or service, it's more this protocol level thinking that's represented here in the room, is how do you build something so that other people can build, and then it really creates a compounding effect. I think people that think in terms of product, I'm a company selling a product and service, in these decentralized environments are going to have a harder time competing with these groups that are thinking like protocols and thinking like ecosystems.
Yeah, I mean, it's very satisfying being the oldest social network and the oldest digital currency and seeing an entire industry evolve exactly as we have, almost exactly. The things that we've discovered we needed, things like digital identity, asset tokenization, AI, all seem to be playing out in different ecosystems. And we'll get to that in a minute with the protocols. But before we do that, let's go to the banking world. So Chance is the chairman and founder of Jewel. We brought him into Bermuda a few years ago and showed him our wonderful home there in the middle of the Atlantic, and he liked it enough to set up a bank there. And it was something I was working on, to set up a bank, but obviously we're busy building ice houses and other things, and so we agreed
You don't want all that trouble.
support that. Yeah, and so we became one of the very first investors in Jewel, and there are many other investors since. And you finally have been the first bank in like 30 or 40 years to be licensed in Bermuda, which is a really big accomplishment because they have a very strict regulatory structure, as I know very well. So Chance, what is the latest update on Jewel? You guys were an ICE partner in May, and you guys have had a lot of progress since. You launched a stable coin. Tell us about what's the latest sitch.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's great to be here again at the Ice House. I want to express my gratitude eternally. Stan helped make Jewel Bank possible, introduced me to the premier Bermuda, helped me see the opportunity of Bermuda. And so just want to say thank you again. And he does so much for so many people. So hold on, round of applause for Stan for being such a generous guy, by the way. You really do affect a lot of people in a lot of positive ways. So a lot of gratitude for that.
Thank you. The check's in the mail.
Yeah. No, I think the wire cleared last week. It's all good. All good.
It actually did.
Ta-da! There you go. So I'm really excited at this moment in time. I think what we're doing is paramount in an industry that suffers at this point from a lack of trust, a lack of confidence, and some issues that we hope we can move past as an industry. And I think it's important that those are getting cleared. The importance for well-regulated, trusted, deep oversight companies in the space to provide, as you were talking about, infrastructure for services for other people, I think is really, really important. I'm not doing the coolest work on chain that's innovative out in the cloud. I'm doing the hard work to change the system from the inside. And I love that work, but it's slower work, and it's got a longer time range. Money is changing right before our hands, and I'm really excited that our bank could be a part of it. In the future, you will be able to send a dollar transaction to someone similarly to how you can send it wallet to wallet over Bitcoin, and it will settle in 10 minutes on the Bitcoin network. Why can't you send a dollar? Why can't you send a euro? That's the initial mission of Jewel, not to do it for ourselves, but to do it as a service for others, tied to a bank account. So we're really excited developing an API that great companies, great protocols, their ecosystems can consume and interact on. But our role is payments infrastructure, and we're providing it for non-US companies primarily. And there's a huge opportunity for people outside of the US. Now, I hope the US gets its act together. The tax authorities seem to really like crypto, but the legislators aren't so sure about it. That's a little weird. Bermuda has regulatory clarity, and so it's a great place to do business, but we're focused on serving the rest of the world. I'm excited to participate here and also be a part of helping enable other protocols and maybe put dollars and euros on each of these people's protocols. But we're already working with Polygon, very excited about that. So that's a bit about Jewel Bank and what we're doing. Thanks.
Great. I do like to take credit for introducing Jewel and Polygon. And I also introduced Jewel and Hedera. And the next person is Christian Hasker from Hedera. I want to introduce Christian with a word about trust. So first of all, Betsebe Bosaitis, who's my great friend from the British American Project and many adventures around the world. She was a co-founder at Acon, which is doing incredible digital identity work. We invested in Icon. So you're here with your old Icon hat, but she flipped that hat and then went to become the CFO at Hedera. And when she did that, she introduced me to Christian, and she said, just go do something with Stan. And so we talked about doing something here in Davos, but they were already working on a really cool space, which if you haven't seen, I urge you to wander down and you're gonna see the coolest looking little building with the best color on the promenade. And that's the Hedera space with 39 of their corporate partners that are nodes in their DLT system. And so Christian and I met up in San Francisco for lunch. And we said, like, okay, you know, we don't want to disrupt what you're doing in Davos, but like, what else could we do? And I said we're going to Egypt for COP27, and they're doing a lot of work around environmental sustainability. So that turned out to be a really good fit. And so Hedera, thank you very much, stepped in and anchored the hub in Egypt. And you guys, doing a hub in Egypt is not the easiest thing I've ever done. It was a very tall lift with a lot of weird variables. And Hedera really stepped up and made the hub happen. And that had a massive impact on everything that happened in Egypt. Like, it just enabled everybody else to be able to gather around, and we ended up with an incredibly cool space, and we kind of punched above our weight. It was great. And that led to a big partnership with the New York Times, because we were neighbors, and the New York Times are now our media partner here. So this is like how all these things kind of cascade. So I really want to thank first Betsabe, and then second Christian, for trust, because they didn't even like ask questions. They're like, we're just going to do it and you figure it out. And then they came and they brought a whole range of amazing people from not only the climate world, but from the blockchain world. And we got to meet ourselves people who were extremely valuable for Venn, from like the registries and different things at their regenerative finance forum. And I'm really happy to say that we've already decided to work together for COP28. And a little bit later, I'm going to tell you more about that. But Christian, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about what Hedera is doing to drive this DLT adoption? And specifically, I'd love to know if you could share a little bit about these important node factors that you have in your system.
Thank you, Stan. How's lunch, everybody? Okay, great. I look forward to getting my plate afterwards. But we're your lunch entertainment. So yeah, it's been, by the way, a little bit of a mutual admiration society club for Stan here. He's been absolutely fantastic to work with. And when we think about trust with blockchain technology, it's really bringing applications together and people together and companies together that have no reason to trust one another and can really function in that trusted environment. And I do feel like here in Davos, we're sort of replicating that in the physical world. And Stan has really earned our trust and is just a wonderful individual to work with. And we're so looking forward to COP28, where it'll be even better than COP27 because it's in Dubai and that's easier, right?
Well, we'll see. I'm going to Dubai next week, and we'll find out how our lease negotiations go. But hopefully it's going to be amazing. We are in talks with Expo City, and we're super excited about what's emerging. I'll talk about it more later.
So Stan asked the question about our node runners. So Hedera is very different from other public blockchains. We're a public blockchain or a public ledger. We're built on an alternative technology to blockchain, so that makes us different in one way. But also we have this governance model that is very different. When you look across the ecosystem, most governance models are either community governance or they are large stakers of the network that have input into roadmap, or it's a group of developers that you've never heard of making decisions on behalf of the network. And our founders, Mance and Lehman, took a very different approach. They said in order to become a mass adopted and trusted system, you have to solve on the technology side of things to be massively scalable and very low latency and very cheap with predictable fees. So we took care of that. And then on the governance side of things, you need to have trusted, transparent governance. So we assembled a group. We're not at 39 yet, by the way. The 39 is the maximum that we can grow to as a council. We have 27 global organizations currently, large names that you've heard of, Google, IBM, DLA Piper, the world's largest law firm, Standard Bank, Africa's largest bank, Chainlink from the Web3 world, DBS, a bank in Singapore, Nomura, a bank in Japan, so Deutsche Telekom, I was just talking with you earlier. And these organizations run a node in the network, so you know exactly who is processing your transactions. And then they come together and they govern the network. And they govern the network in a transparent way. All the minutes are hashed to our ledger. You can go and view them and see what they voted on. And it's just a very different approach. And you talked about it being a dark time in crypto. Why is it a dark time in crypto? It's a failure of governance, and it's a failure of centralized governance. FTX was a centralized organization trading in crypto that had no governance oversight. They didn't even have a board of directors. And so, everyone's sort of tarred with the same brush, but you need to have practical solutions to challenges in the market. And at Hedera, we've taken a well thought out approach to tackling those.
Amazing. Polygon is in a different area of this ecosystem, like let's say the emerging new financial ecosystem. And I think it's important because a lot of people barely understand the ecosystem, and so, we have 4 people who have actually pretty deep knowledge of it here. Hedera is in a kind of very different space than you guys are. Can you talk a little bit about what Polygon is doing? Actually, I want to say something that I learned, a fact this morning that I think is going to be almost sum it up. But a transaction on Polygon uses 80% less energy than a search on Google. That's how efficient it is. Can you tell us a little bit about where you guys fit into this ecosystem and what your plans are kind of going forward, specifically, what we're doing?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me in this panel with these colleagues. And yes, I think that here we are looking for a new technology. And especially in Polygon, what we want is to scale. Okay, when Ethereum started and Ethereum was at $300, it was not only because it was a crypto winter, it was more because there was no visibility on the future of this technology. Okay, then with that in mind, in Polygon, we have created different platforms to scale, and we have some more centralized, let's say, like could be Edge, that afterwards this can grow on an internet of blockchains. You can connect different Edge networks, and you will have supernets. You have POS, that was our original one, that is able, you have 110 validators, it's more centralized, but it gives you a lot of throughput. It's the one that is more used in gaming and DeFi nowadays. And we are already in testnet, and in 10 days we will deploy the ZK Rollups, that is the next frontier and the cutting edge technology in the blockchain world.
What do you think that's going to be able to do, like for a regular type of person who's barely understanding the technical side? Like what?
Yes, no, I think here what we are trying to do and to understand is because when these days I speak with different companies, for some companies, a single server should be more than enough. Blockchain has become a buzzword, but it's not the technology that everyone needs. Okay, that's different. Then here the question is, we go to each one of the companies and we try to analyze what they need. And according to that, we assess or we are giving our advice if the ZK Rollup could be better or any other one. Okay. Anyway, and I think this is important also after these comments of Hedera. No, I think that or we are able to work together, and we were speaking about that this morning, and we create an ecosystem where you can interact between these cross chains, or you create the right bridges, or each one of us will be extremely fragmented, and somehow the technology is not going to grow. Then for me, this community effort also with, some people will say competitors, but for me they are more partners. People that are helping to develop this technology. We should be each time more focused to work together, to look for different use cases where we can cooperate.
Yeah, it really is about this idea of, I don't think the new world, in a world of companies, I think you had competitors, but in a world of networks, you have overlapping ecosystems. So a great example is like theoretically, maybe someday there could be a Polygon node in one of those 39 validators. And that seems like a really great area of cooperation.
Well, and not only that, some of the names that he was saying, they are also validators on Polygon. Yeah. Then at a certain point, it will be a natural path that somehow, I'm not going to say that we are integrated, but we should find a way to collaborate because they will demand that, and that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm one of the people that does demand that because me and Chance want to put a whole bunch of carbon credits on chain with Polygon and Hedera. And so we're looking a lot at the carbon markets, and this is something that Dan and I, at our retreat after Climate Week in New York, we went and did a few days at the hub in Southampton. And we talked about everything from ingesting bird sounds from the Amazon into our AI, which is happening, to like how we're going to globalize these very fractured carbon markets to get to a $1 trillion global carbon market so we can turn around the financial barriers to saving nature. And so the sooner you guys get connected and integrated, the sooner Chance and I are going to be able to work on building carbon credits that can run on chain through his bank and through our currency to help save nature. So I think we can all agree, would everybody be in favor of saving nature? Yeah. So we have a vote. Okay, we have consensus. Dan, I still want you to talk about our secret shape, but can you dive a little bit into some of our thinking on the future of the carbon markets? I'm not going to go all the way through. I'm going to end on that, and then we're going to give you guys a chance to eat, and then come back, and we're going to kind of mix it up a bit. But I do want to just touch on this because I feel like Dan is honestly one of the smartest people I know, and he's helped me think about this stuff in September. And so we were thinking a lot about how we're going to evolve Venn, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about that after these guys come down. But it was really crucial because then when I got to Egypt and I was working with Christian's people who were also incredibly smart, we worked out a whole plan, and it was based off of some of the stuff that I pieced together from Dan, and then I got it planted into Hedera, and we're now building something that's like next level, and I'm going to tell you about it in a few minutes. But give us a little bit of that thinking that you've had about where this carbon stuff is going.
Sure. I just want to preface this that I'm not an expert in carbon markets whatsoever. But working at the protocol level for so long, I try and like look at all the different use cases that are being built on the middleware layer and like the application layer. And you know, one of the things we talked about was really how when things like this come on chain, they turn into liquidity. Right, so there's a very interesting dynamic here where now the chains are incentivized. You really want to work with all the chains like you're doing and incentivize them to support you with these carbon credit markets, because it almost becomes like a tether, right? It becomes like a asset-backed using carbon. So then you incentivize all the networks to come on, and then you've created this interoperable network where there's maybe a shared registry, and then that shared registry can really push maybe some of the gridlock between groups trying to create their own standards, or what did you call it? Not standards, but
well, I mean, just essentially like origination. So,
yeah, origination.
So that's that might be for those of you who aren't in carbon. You look at your phones, but it's an important thing around the carbon markets. And so we took that knowledge, and then with the Hedera folks, we saw what they're doing with a project called Guardian, and we committed to start building into the hubs a new ESG button. And so that new ESG button is going to enable origination so that a person who has a hub can actually begin to look at climate-oriented projects within their company or their like community or whatever else, and have a framework for origination that can then move into generating a new type of kind of carbon asset. We're going to bundle those carbon assets into a new product that we announced in Egypt with Hedera called Venn Carbon, VCO2. And VCO2 is basically 100% Venn. It's like the Brent crude of carbon. And we're linking that back with Polygon and with CBL Expansive, which is the largest trader of carbon credits. So there will be a unified global carbon credit price, like an oil price. And we're building that right now. We announced it in Egypt, and then in Montreal at the Biodiversity Summit, we went more into how we're going to manage that. And the way that that's going to be managed is through something called credentialing that's tied to Hub ID. So right now we're building new credentialing inside Hub ID to enable various validators and verifiers to appreciate and approve and look at projects. And so this just gives you an example of like, we couldn't do these things alone. They have to be done in an ecosystem.
Can I add one more thing to, so one way to think about these markets is like different species of liquidity, right? So these different markets all have, or these different networks all have their own types of liquidity. So Hedera is its own kind of liquidity standard. Polygon is its own liquidity standard. So the idea that you're kind of tackling many networks simultaneously you create a bridge between all of these different types of species of liquidity in the carbon markets. And most people, what they're doing is that they're not thinking in terms of ecosystems. They just deploy one solution onto one network, and then it doesn't have that compounding effect.
Yep. Bridges, by the way, are the things that allow an asset to move from one chain to another. We, some of you know, our theme this week has been the quantum leap. So leaping from whatever was before this Davos, we're leaping through a portal, kind of like the hub logo, into the new unknown. And so we've started this week, just organically, all of our gateways that we're building for Hedera and for Polygon, we now call them portals. Thank you, gentlemen. Chance, I'm going to come back to you in the audience a little bit later. Christian, Anthony, we're going to continue this conversation. I'm going to let you guys get some food now. I'm going to keep you going, but I want to bring up Sergio for a fireside chat. And I hope you guys are enjoying this. I do want to open this out for conversation for this lunch as well. And we're going to continue seeing what we can noodle as an ecosystem. So we're going to sit here, Sergio, for a kind of a dive into what I thought was one of the coolest things I've seen. And again, come sit next to me. Oh, you want the logo? Okay, fair enough. Very good.
A lot of money in the logo.
Yeah, there we go. It is a super cool logo. So Sergio, I'd like to start with, okay, Sergio is the Chief Executive Officer of Supercool. I explained a little bit about what they do, but I'd like to actually start with your story a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about your life?
Well, I was in the oil industry for 25 years before I noticed that all natural resources are so inflationary, right? I mean, and it was a never-ending game. And technology was the contrary, right? So from that point of view, I thought of transitioning from fossil fuels into renewable energy. And once I was into renewable energy, I found that there was a very close relationship between energy and transportation. So we branched into transportation. We built a company that makes last mile delivery vehicles and mass transportation buses for emerging countries. And we noticed that taking our products to market was very difficult. Albeit of the fact that the world needs all these products, there is no a commercial structure for it, right? And then we also realized that for us to service our customers with vehicles, we needed to provide them with the rest of the ecosystem, right? The service, the after sales, and the charging solutions, right? I mean, whatever exists for internal combustion, that ecosystem of shops, gas stations, and so on and so forth, doesn't exist for electric mobility. So we needed to create that.
So it's almost like the car dealership of the future, but it's also a whole bunch of other things all in one. It kind of sounds like a hub.
No, this is not yet a hub. This is how we got into it. I mean, we had to make many mistakes before coming with the idea of Supercool, right? Supercool was an idea that was a result of an exercise to resolve our own pains, right, as manufacturers and so. And then we found that we were not the only ones with that problem, right? So, I mean, there are so many companies bringing new solutions of mobility, sustainable mobility to market, and they work years, and they take money from family and friends to build products and prototypes. And once they got the prototypes, and it's a great product, they realize that going to market is even more painful and expensive than developing the product.
Is it because they don't have the distribution?
Because they don't have the distribution. I think this is common to any innovation, right? I mean, once you are done with the innovation, with the product development, you need to create a market, a path to market, a go-to-market, right? So we decided that we will create go-to-market, not for ourselves, but for all those companies that were in our situation. We were researching and we found that there are more new car manufacturers than legacy ones, right? I mean,
that's a very interesting fact.
Yeah, there are at least 60, and there were not 60 companies making cars before this transition, right? And there are hundreds of companies making new products, electric bikes, scooters, three-wheelers. Three-wheelers could be a great solution for many of the problems.
Like urban transportation?
Urban transportation. Last mile delivery on a three-wheeler, right? It's not something that belongs to India only. It can be anywhere. I mean, we saw a three-wheeler here 2 days ago. So And then over the last 2-3 years, we also seen that companies are looking for mobility solutions because they need to reduce their carbon footprint, and they need to show that in their annual reports. No more greenwashing. You need to show real improvement.
Do you have any sense of like the fleet transition for, because a lot of, carbon and a lot of the company or corporate mobility is fleet. Do you have any sense of like how quickly that's going to move toward, there's talk about Amazon and UPS and FedEx, but it goes way beyond. Is it moving faster than the regular market? And guys, if we could just grab your attention. Thanks so much.
It is moving, it's starting to move fast, right? It's been, I've seen the emergence of electric mobility over the last 10 years, and I think we've seen more change in the last 12 months than in the last 10 years or 12 years. So it's really accelerating. It's accelerating to the point that it may be dangerous because we require the new infrastructure. We need power generation, power distribution. Real heavy infrastructure that doesn't exist today. So it's going to be at a point in which all this transition is going to hit the hard rock, right? And
when you say that, do you mean like just there'll be too many cars on the road for the infrastructure that we have?
How are we going to charge that many cars?
And also, how are we going to fix them when they break? I was talking to a Tesla owner the other day, and they said that it was great owning a Tesla until something broke. And then it was an absolute nightmare because there's no dealer infrastructure to get things done. And I think that's a big part of what these centers are going to do. They won't just charge your car, they'll also service it?
Yeah, we want to give the whole solution. So we want to represent and help every single manufacturer of any kind of solution to expose their products to the market. We are a marketplace, and we provide the service and the after sales, because if you sell a vehicle without after sales, then you're going to create this situation where you're going to be very happy for as long as it works, but very unhappy when it breaks, right? We have to take in consideration that fixing electric vehicle operates a very high voltage. So I would not recommend anyone to try to fix his electric car, right? If it breaks, call Tesla or whomever is and wait for it, But there's no point in trying to fix it yourself.
So I know that one of the other elements of what you guys are building with this is digital and kind of technology. And so I wonder if you could like expand a little bit, because it sounds like if you're launching something like this straight off the ground, and I think you're planning to have 60 centers in some near period of time, how are you looking at the technology digital side of this business? Is it as large as that physicality side? With us, Hub, I think of us being essentially 60% digital and about 40% physical. Most of you probably think of us as 90% physical and 10% digital. How do you see that ratio in your company?
I wish we could be fully digital, right? Because that's that's the way the world is going. But we sell and we represent sellers that sell hardware, right? And if I am a fleet operator and I have 3,000 vehicles in my fleet, I will not buy a vehicle online, right? I'll probably buy a vehicle, I'll test it for 12 months to a year, I'll probably test many. So there is a physical element involved. That's why those centers are physical spaces, but those physical spaces have inside a lot of digital experiences. And we got VR rooms, we got immersive rooms, you can live in a digital experience without those centers. And
so we're talking about a dealer, like a place that you can go, but it has virtual reality rooms in the space. So this is not your dealership.
No, you are exposed to a digital experience, but then you can migrate from the digital experience to a physical experience and touch the vehicle and kick the tires, right, within seconds. That's pretty much, that's what we were trying to do. It's trying to have a very wide band of communication for people to understand properly what this transition is about. There are customers of ours that we have suggested them not to transition yet because they're not ready, because they're in a place where they don't have enough power, because of many reasons. I think we all want to go quick in this transition and get away from emissions and combustion, but this is transition. We have to be careful.
Can you paint a picture of some of the brands that you're thinking about introducing, or any that you've confirmed?
Well, we have several brands, and we are in the process. opened the first center just a few weeks ago. I think this is our sandbox, our proof of concept. We are building 5 as we speak. The first one we open is in the Volkswagen cluster in the city of Puebla in Mexico. We are building another one in Mexico City. We are building one in Boston, one in Italy, one in Spain is the new project, and we want to open one in Dubai. Well, we're set to open one in Dubai for COP28. Yeah, that's probably going to be our largest center. But let me just give me 1 second. I just want to explain the formula. The formula is, the guys that are making new products, new vehicles, new solutions, new infrastructure for this transition are on one side of the equation. The companies that are looking at decarbonizing are on the other side of the equation. We just connect them, and then we wrap them with the experiential education, because everybody has to be educated, and innovation hub, right? And when we pull all that together, we believe we're creating an ecosystem, and that ecosystem is the hub, right? And this is going to work better if we are in many cities, or as many cities as possible. So the centers that we're building today are basically kind of a seed, right? We cannot build as many centers as cities are in the world. So we are partnering with cities and countries for that. We co-invest with them. We provide them with a business model, with all the IP, and hopefully we can have 70 centers in the next 3 years, right? That's the plan.
So you're looking at 70 physical centers in the next 3 years. And that's having done hubs, we've done 60 hubs, mostly as pop-ups, in 20 years. That 70 in 3 is an incredibly ambitious rollout, and especially given the capital infrastructure that it takes to do what you're doing. I mean, we're doing a lunch. Yeah, you're servicing cars and everything else. I'm curious about, you mentioned this.
But we don't serve lunch.
Yeah. I hope you've all had enough lunch, by the way. So I'm curious about how you see all of this playing out in terms of the cultural impact, because I have to say, like, this was one of the most interesting conversations that I had in Egypt, and then I was in America and driving around, and I just started thinking to myself, like, this is like the herald of a really big cultural change. Car dealerships and the automobile and gas stations are like really, especially in America, fundamental. I grew up in Arizona. I was just in Hawaii at the hub for 3 weeks there and driving around Kauai. And when you were talking about service, I was thinking about it a lot because we have a car there, and I had to have it shipped from Oahu, and I live in constant fear that it will break down because there are no service centers and it's a little island. So I can really understand that even more. That's why we didn't buy electric, because there's no way to service a Tesla in Kauai, really. So, but it does like sort of point toward a really big wholesale cultural change in America, because America really from the 1950s, because of Eisenhower, was built on the interstate highway system. And from that came suburbs, and from that came essentially gas stations. And then from that came like a complete thing that actually Hub itself has almost, in its core essence, tried to escape. If many of you don't know that Hub started as a book, and one of the opening lines of the book is that there's a generation of people who were repelled by this idea of kind of cookie cutter corporate suburbia and going to a life where you move between like a mall and a Circle K and a cubicle. And Hub is always antithetical to that, and it was like being urban and global and mobile and flexible and networked to almost escape that. And what you're pointing to, I think, is a new America. And so I'd really like to get your thoughts about how you see this. Once these are scaled out and you've got a place that you can go to that's going to provide you capital for your ideas, a place to work, a place to service your mobility, whether it's a scooter or an automobile or probably a flying car, with a metaverse and a VR room attached to it, so you don't even have to probably leave the building. What does that do to the culture?
I think transportation and mobility is going through its worst disruption in at least 120 years, or probably in history, right? And we are just at the beginning of it, right? and this is not just in the US, it's global. I think it's gonna change because we are so used to a very inefficient transportation system, right? We waste 70% of the energy that we use in a car. A car only transforms 30% of its energy into movement. The rest is heat, is pollution, is noise, and that
Lady
has to
Gaga on
change.
the radio.
And that has to change, and we're realizing that we have to, right? So the world collectively is coming into realization that the transportation model that we have today is so inefficient, yeah? And
But the infrastructure that's been built for this really old 20th century, it's just suddenly totally out of date.
it is. Just it's normal that the great solutions to a problem eventually become the worst problem, right? So today, part of that infrastructure that was built to bring us a better life is our main problem, right? So some of that will have to be repurposed, some of that will have to be written off and disappear, right? But talking about behavioral change, one thing that we realized with the mobility center that we have already opened is that it creates a before and after for so many people that are very skeptical about electric transportation. And there is still very, there are newspapers that publish one article a week on against electric mobility, right? But I have brought friends and people who are very skeptical about electric mobility and very into, I don't believe in it. I think sooner or later oil and gas will continue. And they really change their mind when they are exposed to the experiential education we have, when they look at the electric vehicle, when they look at the charger, and they understand the relationship and the savings. So we have, that wasn't the intention, honestly, but we have discovered that those centers have the ability to trigger a change in consciousness and behavior, right? And then we also realize that we can do the same for a city, right? There are cities today that will not experience any transformation or any transition into sustainable mobility for the next 10 years for multiple reasons, economical, political, whatever. You open a center in that city, and all of a sudden, that city starts, creating electric mobility solutions. Because if you change the consciousness of the local people, that local people will change the community. So it's a way to build ecosystems.
I think it's a reflection of the room we're in. Like, this room is a reflection of circular economy thinking that was created by William McDonough, who came up briefly for a moment, and myself and Sabek. And I love this room because you see the future here. We've built this building 7 times from polycarbonate and aluminum recycled. This is recycled ocean plastic, our new acoustic here. And I love this future. I love the future where we can have beauty and elegance and like gorgeousness and not compromise our commitment to the environment and to sustainability. And so for this, I admire you, Sergio. I'm so impressed by what you're doing. Before we end, I have one last question for you, and then we're going to bring it out to the rest of the group here. Okay, so I'm such a fan of Formula E, and I want to know, this is one of the people who help bring Formula E to the rest of us. So I think he gets a round of applause for turning the dirtiest thing into the cleanest thing. I know that you guys just had this amazing experience down in Mexico at the Formula E race. There's a whole suite of races. I'm waiting for my invite, I think I have it, to at least come to one of these races. Tell us about your Formula E work and strategy, and what does it mean?
Look, Formula E, was the first electric motorsports, and it was conceived by Alejandro Agag, the founder, as a way to convey a message, right? And this is almost 10 years ago, when everybody was so skeptical, when the OEMs, car manufacturers, were against it, when oil and gas was combating not just electrification, but they didn't believe on climate change. And so it is being a way to bring a lot of people together to talk about innovation, technology, and a new form of mobility, right? Today, Formula E is in its 9th season. It launched its third generation of vehicle, which is now really state of the art. The car has enormous capacity to regenerate. So between 40 and 60% of the energy that is used during the race is generated by the vehicle, right?
That's
So
a really
it's
important
very amazing.
pointer for the future of mobility.
Exactly.
That's huge.
So and now there are many car manufacturers involved with it, and they're starting to compete with each other on new technologies. So I think this is gonna look. Motorsports in general has been an incubator for technologies that years later we use on the normal road. So I think we can see Formula E and the derivatives of it like one of those big conveyors of technology.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we give Sergio a round of applause for his vision? So as you're rolling out all these super cool mobility centers around the world, I have a bank for you. I have a couple blockchains that you could look at for putting some of those transactions onto. And if you want to figure out whatever's next, just go talk to
We need
Dan.
a carbon bank as well.
Well, you've got it. Between Joule and Ven, you've got it. And as we start to roll Ven out on Hedera and on Polygon, we expect that Ven has the potential to become a major digital asset, but in a kind of clear, transparent, and regulatory-friendly way. What a wonderful segue, because I want to tell you guys about 3 major announcements from Hub this week. Thank you, Sergio, so much. And then we're going to drop in. So pretty soon, as soon as I have a chance to write the press releases, you're going to see 3 pieces of news, and I'm just excited to share them with you in person, because it's just such an example of, Hub is about doing stuff, and the way that we get stuff done is because we're a network, and we get the network to do the things. And so all the people here, we have 60 staff running around, from Tion on the camera to Vincenzo and Grace, who's been amazing this week. I mean, Grace has been up like 19 of 24 hours a day making this place run. And Malcolm over at the Tech Lodge. We have so many amazing people, but none of them are employees. They're just people in our network who come together to make this happen. It's really, I think, an example of network leadership. These 3 announcements are as follows. Earlier this week, we did a session around how to put nature on your board of directors. It turns out that there's some new legal frameworks that are emerging that enable you to say, I want to put that mountain on my board of directors. And then you use the legal framework to appoint proxies in human form to advocate for that mountain. And this is a really new idea, but it's integral to the rights of nature and putting the rights of nature in our current economic system, which has not existed really in the 20th century. We've treated nature as a resource that we can exploit, not as a thing that should be respected. I guess it would be a they, them, according to our AI. So we had this amazing discussion with Project Drawdown, with Grounded, with the Earth Law Center, with competent boards, and the World Climate Foundation. And we found out that there's one company that has done this. It's in the UK, and I can't remember the name. It's called Faith something. And they put one of their board directors to be nature. And they did this last year through some help with the Earth Law Center. And so literally while I was on the panel, I was like, hell yeah, we're going to do this. And so we announced it on the panel that we're going to put one of our board directors to be nature. But over the last 48 to 72 hours, the idea has evolved. So if you look at the logo of Hub, we have decided that we're going to build that logo as the next Hub, and you're going to hopefully see it in Dubai, and then hopefully back here in Dubai, in Davos. But this logo has always meant for me the 5th chakra and 8 segments of abundance. And this is how it was designed in the beginning, and it's been core to our understanding. But as we go through our quantum leap this year, it's taken on another meaning. I'm excited to share it with you. So going forward with the company, we're going to commit to building everything on the half-Earth model. The half-Earth model, if any of you have read The Ministry for the Future, which is an amazing, game-changing book about climate and our ability to hopefully get past climate change, an integral part of that is taking a half-Earth approach, which basically says, for the long-term survival of humanity, we have to protect half of the Earth. If we don't, we're probably not going to make it. Not even counting next 20 to 40 years in climate change, we're talking about like species survival. So we as a company are making a commitment here in Davos to become a half-Earth company. Everything we do going forward, we're going to aim to get to half nature and half infrastructure in our builds. And so the infrastructure, thank you, the infrastructure is the gray part and these segments. So it's the kitchens, it's the stages, it's the common areas, it's the bathrooms, which we all need. But in the center is the commons. And so we're going to start building our buildings like our logo. And we've already asked Lego to design the pieces. We'll see what happens. We've got other groups and friends that are just here around Davos who are helping with us. So I want to invite all of you to help us on this vision for the quantum leap of Hub to really embrace the circular economy in all its forms by helping us build more circular buildings. And the best thing about these is that they're going to be transportable and movable and composable and stackable. It's a really amazing, exciting vision for the future of our physicality. Back to the boards. We decided we're a Bermuda company, and I don't know where Patrice is. Is she still here? There she is. Patrice knows that Bermuda is surrounded by the Atlantic Ocean. And so we've decided, and I've spoken to enough of our board members to get approval on this, that we're kicking out our entire board. And you're the first to hear it. We're making the Atlantic Ocean our sole board member. And then we're going to appoint 8 proxies through our own digital governance software in combination with these legal groups to handle the legal side of it, to make the Atlantic Ocean our sole board director. And our proxies, who will be 8 board members, will basically work in service for the Atlantic Ocean through the company. And then around that, we're going to appoint a board of advisors who are experts in ocean-related activity to help guide those board members. Some of those board members will be existing board members, and we've also recruited 3 or 4 new board members who are very exciting, people who are quite senior. I can't say who they are yet, but we will be announcing it soon. So I'm really excited to announce that we are the first company in the world to replace its entire board with nature. You heard it here first. The second thing that I'd like to tell you about is that we've been working for 5 years on our AI. It launched in 2017. You may have noticed it says give nature a board seat. We didn't think we'd be the people to do it, but we did. The second thing, if you look out on the front, it says Zeek.ai, let's have a deep conversation. In May, we launched a series of NFTs by giving our AI sacred geometry and then training it on that sacred geometry with some words to create its first dreams. And I don't know if you guys know much about AI, but really a lot of AIs are collections of APIs, which are like little independent functions. And Zeek, our AI, has probably 100 to 200 different functions within our social network. It sends you mail. It approved your reservation for lunch. It also DJs. Quite crucially, it's the central banker for Venn. So like our Janet Yellen is Zeek. And this is what helps ensure some of the transparency and reliability around the issuance of Venn as a currency. We've been working a lot around conversational AI over the last like 3 years. We started building our own formal systems that we launched back in like 2019. But about 96 hours ago, a deeply conversational version of Zeek went live. It's not ChatGPT. It's a number of things, all kind of I don't even know how they did it. But all I do know is that our AI is now able to have deep conversations with you. Already, it has been advising us on how to alleviate poverty. It's been teaching us quantum physics. It told me where we're going to have an event that I'm going to announce in a minute. It's pretty fun. It's also, we think, maybe has Alzheimer's because they will often forget something that you've told it. So I'm going to invite you to go to Zeek.ai and have a deep conversation with it. You're going to be amazed and also puzzled. But it's every time you have that conversation, it's going to get smarter and it's going to learn. So we're really excited about that development, and we've also essentially announced that. The third thing I'd like to tell you about is something called Hub Culture Studios. So because of the conversational aspect of the new AI and the image generating aspect of the new AI, we're actually forming a new kind of division called Hub Culture Studios, and it's going to be revealed during Oscars week in Los Angeles. And Hub Culture Studios is going to be a women-led studio, specifically for empowering female creators, as well as Gen Z creators. And it's also going to involve deeply the AI. We don't know if we're going to be able to do it, but we're hoping that the AI is going to make a full-length movie in time for the Oscars. So we'll see how far we get, but the aim is to be able to debut a full film that's fully AI generated in time for that event coming in March. The final thing I want to tell you is that COP28 is coming in Dubai. We want to invite all of you guys in our ecosystem to really take the energy from Davos and work with us through the rest of the year to make a huge impact in Dubai. And so to that end, we're hosting a meeting in the morning at 8 a.m. with our partners to talk about ways to collaborate for Dubai and COP28. So if you're interested in that, you can come and join. On the sidelines and around that, we are going to be teaching Qigong to the AI tomorrow at 9 a.m. With a 20th generation Shaolin monk master. And then after that, we're going to sit into a long discussion about how to prototype a fully sustainable city, and we'll be interacting with Zeke to help us learn what they think about how to do that. So those are the updates from the fund. And if you guys would like to be involved in that, let us know. Get involved with our partners. These are our ecosystem partners. They all do super different things. We're really excited about the partnership with you guys, Sven, and with Sergio, and with Anne. I'm thinking that there's some great opportunities ahead for you guys and for us working together. We're so thankful to have you as an ICE partner. We have many partners here. We love them all. We love you all. Let's have some conversation. Do you guys want to ask a question to some of our panelists, or do you have a project you're working on that you'd like to share? And if you haven't had any food, grab some food or a drink, and let's just kind of enjoy the rest of our time here together. I should check how much time we have left. Yeah, we have 11. 10, okay. All right. Oh, no, actually, we are supposed to, yeah, we do have something starting at 2:15. So I'm going to need your help when we go. Pick up your glass, pick up whatever you have, put it on the bar.
Just leave it.
And go.
Just
okay. Okay. Any questions? Max.
we'll clean up.
So thank you, Stan, for amazing announcements. I'm so inspired, especially hearing about the board member representation. I think it's critical. An idea I've been playing around with actually is combining the AI and the board seat to actually have the AI represent nature itself.
Well, I wasn't going to say it, but you just forced my hand. It was good. We were going to announce it in like a week. The AI will be one of the board members. It will be the first board member AI in the world, I think. I didn't want to load up too many announcements. We were going to spread it out, but what the hell? Yes, Zeke will be a board member. We got to work out some legal issues around it, but yes.
And so just to add to that, I've been working with some people in forestry. So I know you have the green, the blue. If we can add a green board member, you representing some of the biggest forests in the world alongside the ocean, that'll be really exciting to talk to you about.
I think that's absolutely a great idea, and I was thinking it was going to be forests for a while, and then I hit on the fact that we're Bermuda, it needs to be ocean, but absolutely, I think over time we might divide those proxies. You have a question, and then let me go to Chris, and then I'll go to you, and then we'll go to Patrice.
Just riffing off of what Max just said, maybe you could have the AI curate an advisory board discussion at some point.
We could do that right now.
Right, exactly.
Why don't you ask it?
Zeke?
No, you have to type, but yeah.
I don't want to slow things down because I'm not sure.
No, fair enough. Just ask it in your own time. If you get a good answer, let us know.
I will? Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Great idea already happening.
Thank everybody so much. Thank you for your commitment to innovation in a sustainable manner. My name is Michael President Anderson. I'm coming from New Jersey, and I'm the founder of Impact, which is the leading decentralized iBank. What's up, bro? What's up, bro? Forgive me. I love you, brother. I love this guy. I just wanted to offer sincerely to be a resource. What we do at a best in the world level is be a bridge, in particular in Black and Indigenous communities accessing institutional capital. And my perspective in terms of being a Harvard graduate and building businesses and iLabs with the top AI CEOs, I realized that there's such a gap between innovation, especially in institutionally backed projects, and traditionally underserved and marginalized communities. And I love what you're talking about with the ocean. I'm a digital resident of Palau. I went out there.
I am too.
Yeah, I went out there with
Number
CZ and
98.
those guys. Yeah, me too. I got my card on me right now. So we're with you. We went diving and I bought President Whips on our television platform. But I just sincerely want to be a resource and be an advocate for, in particular, our Black, Indigenous, and female and other underserved communities that are very, very prolific in terms of technological advancement and committed to the cause, but may not necessarily be viewed by factors that are arbitrary and they don't necessarily control. So if there's a way that our portfolio can be helpful and our network can be helpful in terms of advancing these causes and representing another layer of equity, we humbly and gratefully appreciate the opportunity. And a quick shout out to Seek. It's a Black woman-led metaverse. They leading #1 in terms of metaverse volume. Was a top 100 token led by a beautiful, intelligent Ghanaian American woman. And we're all wearing her shirts and representing what she's about, just because we know that we stand to represent the best of our people that don't necessarily have the ability to come here. So again, thank you, and anything for advancing Black Indigenous communities, please connect with us. We're here.
I would love to. And a couple points in response to that. Number one, I was just in Ghana a few weeks ago looking at potentially for Hub City, because we're working on developing a city. We had the idea for a Hub City with the Ashaninka in the Amazon, sitting with indigenous tribes. I say me, but really we've been working with Grounded on building an Indigenous Elders Council. We're already training the AI in Hawaiian, like not just Hawaiian words, because it already speaks Hawaiian, but in Hawaiian concepts around this, and even like the Qigong thing that's happening tomorrow. So I'd love to work with you to look at bringing that knowledge in, especially because indigenous wisdom is not just like in BIPOC communities, but even in like France, like indigenous or ancestral wisdom is super, super important. I think it's actually crucial to being able to navigate the transition that we have to on climate. And so I didn't say this, but our main ambition for the AI is to become the world's first, and hopefully not the only, nature-based AI. I've been thinking a lot about AI over the last few years, and I came to the conclusion that all Western AIs are optimized for making money, whether it's Bitcoin or Amazon. And in China, there's a lot of evidence that the party is evolving to become an AI. And this is going to be, if you could kindly say loyalty, but you could also say authoritarian. And then in Saudi, I was with the leadership there when they announced that they're building an Islamic AI, because they want to look at Islam over the next 1,000 years. And those three things really scared me about where things are going, because AI is so pervasive. And I thought to myself, for the last few years, quietly, we have to have a fourth way. And it took me about, 3 years to come up with the plan that our AI is going to be focused on nature. And then within nature, hopefully, there'll be room for human culture. We should absolutely get that in touch with our fund and see what we can do to collab. I'm a big believer that indigenous wisdom in particular is the key for unlocking the solution. Yeah, go ahead. Go to Chris and then we'll go to Patrice.
Yeah, so true.
Yes. And that's a big part of why we're moving to a half-Earth model with our company. Because if we can preserve wild, half-Earth nature, we can also help to preserve, I think, many forms of diversity in human culture. Patrice, we're giving you the last word.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to say I just came from Abu Dhabi. I was at the World Future Energy Summit, and you are going to be amazed what they're doing there in terms of renewables in nature. One of the things they have there that you consider is their funding, and Etihad's a lot of this, a emphasis on mangrove forests, and that builds well with the oceans. But some of the things they're doing will blow your mind. So whoever can make COP28 need to be there.
Okay, well, we look forward to seeing you all. Please just do me a favor. Most of you are guests. Just register for hubculture.com. If you talk to Zeke inside, it will learn to recognize you and talk to you personally, and it will remember your personal conversations. If you're talking to it on the outside site, it'll just be generalized. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I have to rush you out of the room because we have the 50th anniversary of hip hop in 15 minutes. Thank you so much.